Superiority complex. Welcome to one of the most intriguing corners of psychology, the superiority complex. Imagine someone who always places themselves at the top of the podium, looking down on everyone else with disdain. This is the essence of the complex, an exaggerated self-esteem that leads a person to consider themselves exceptionally better than others. People with this complex often exhibit a superior attitude, believing they are above the rules and criticism of others. They may have a constant need to stand out and be recognized as the best at everything they do, often disregarding or belittling the work and achievements of others. This mentality can be detrimental to interpersonal relationships, as those with a superiority complex may have difficulty establishing genuine connections with others, since they tend to focus only on themselves and their own importance. Understanding this complex helps us recognize how someone's exaggerated self-image can influence their behavior and interactions with others. It's a reminder that we all have our own struggles and successes, and that true greatness comes from humility and mutual respect. God complex. Welcome to the intriguing world of the God complex. Imagine someone who sees themselves as a deity, above all other human beings, with powers that transcend the ordinary. This is the essence of the complex, an exaggerated belief in one's own divinity and superiority over humanity. People with this complex can exhibit extreme arrogance, believing they are above the rules and laws that govern society. They may consider themselves capable of doing whatever they want without worrying about the consequences for themselves or others. This type of mentality is often associated with narcissistic personality disorder, where the person has a constant need for admiration and validation and a lack of empathy for others' feelings. This belief in one's own divinity can lead to harmful and even dangerous behaviors, as the person may feel justified in making decisions that affect other people's lives without considering the consequences. Understanding this complex helps us recognize the dangers of unchecked arrogance and the importance of cultivating humility and respect for others. Inferiority complex. The inferiority complex is the opposite of the superiority complex. Imagine feeling constantly inadequate, less capable than those around you. This is the essence of the complex, a persistent sense of insufficiency or inferiority in relation to others. When someone has this complex, they may exhibit a lack of confidence in themselves and their abilities. They may see themselves as less talented, less attractive, or less worthy of success than others. This mentality often leads to an incessant search for external validation and constant comparison with others, which only reinforces feelings of inadequacy. The inferiority complex can have deep roots in childhood, with traumatic experiences or negative messages internalized from authority figures. These experiences shape how we see ourselves and the world around us, and they can be difficult to overcome. It's important to recognize the signs of this complex to work on building a healthy and positive self-esteem. This can involve therapy, self-care practices, and personal development. Everyone deserves to feel worthy and capable, and overcoming the inferiority complex is an important step on that journey. Persecution complex. Have you ever heard of the persecution complex? It's like that feeling that everyone is out to get you, ready to harm you, even if there's no real reason for it. It's like you're constantly under threat, but in an irrational way. People with this complex may interpret everything around them in a distorted way, seeing conspiracies and dangers where there really are none. It's like seeing shadows where there's no light, you know? This constant paranoia can end up harming relationships and even the quality of life of these people. Usually, the persecution complex is related to mental health issues like paranoia or extreme anxiety. Sometimes it's the result of past traumatic experiences or even a genetic tendency to interpret things negatively. If you or someone you know is going through this, you don't have to face it alone. Seeking professional help, whether therapy, medication, or support from friends and family, can make a big difference. After all, everyone deserves to feel safe and protected without constantly looking over their shoulder, right? Parental complex. You know that thing about favorite mom or dad? It's kind of what happens with the parental complex. It's when the relationship between kids and parents is amplified, leading to an exaggerated identification with one of the parents. It's like the child connects a lot with the parent's way, you know? For example, there are those kids who identify super strongly with their mom, being like mommy's little girl or daddy's boy. The thing is, this connection can be so strong that the child ends up taking on specific characteristics and behaviors of the parent without even realizing it. But hey, this complex isn't just for kids. Sometimes it even happens in adulthood, like someone who follows in the footsteps of their parent in an exaggerated way, like a carbon copy of them. This exaggerated identification might bring dilemmas or even some identity confusion. So, if you identify with this, don't worry. It's normal to admire your parents and want to follow in their footsteps, but it's also important to develop your own identity. Finding yourself, exploring your own skills and interests, and building your own path, independent of your parents. After all, everyone has their own path to follow, and it's okay to deviate a bit from the old folks' route, right? Horror complex. You know those guys who seem to have a distorted view of women? Well, this might be linked to what's called the horror complex. It's something that happens more with guys, usually those who can't maintain a serious and committed relationship, especially during intimate moments. Imagine a guy who has difficulty truly connecting with a woman in a deeper and more intimate way. He might end up creating an extreme image of women. Like, he either sees them as the best things in the world, like flawless angels, or he views them negatively, thinking they're just a bunch of promiscuous women. And look, this can really mess with the guy's head because he ends up swinging between extremes. He might find himself madly in love with a woman one minute, thinking she's the most amazing person he's ever met. And then the next, he's distrustful of all women, thinking they're just gold diggers. This, my friend, can leave him in a bad place because it becomes difficult to trust, truly open up, and build a solid relationship. After all, there's that constant fear of getting hurt or disappointed again, which makes him a bit more guarded, protecting himself. But look, it's not like these guys are villains. Sometimes they're just a bit lost. It's something that needs a more attentive look, understanding where this all comes from, and maybe giving a bit of help so they can better handle these feelings. Because in the end, everyone deserves to have a good relationship based on trust, respect, and affection. Guilt complex. You know when it feels like everything wrong in the world is your fault? That's kind of how the guilt complex works. It's like the person carries the responsibility for every little problem that happens around them. And it's not just that. They also constantly self-judge. It's like an internal voice that never stops criticizing every step they take. Imagine this. The person makes a mistake, does something that didn't go as planned, and boom, the internal judgment starts. They keep asking themselves 1,000 times if they could have done it differently, if they could have foreseen the mistake, if they could have avoided the whole situation. And then the guilt builds up, becoming a heavy load. And there's more. These folks are super sensitive to others' opinions. Any little criticism is enough to make them feel even worse. It's like every negative word they hear is just another confirmation that they're really to blame for everything bad that happens. But you know what? This whole thing can really harm the person's well-being because they constantly feel down. And obviously this affects their relationships with others because it's hard to open up, be genuine, and trust others when you don't even give yourself a vote of confidence. But look, the important thing is to understand that this doesn't define the person. They might be going through a tough time, but that doesn't mean they're a total failure. Sometimes it's just a matter of taking one step at a time, forgiving yourself for mistakes, learning from experiences, and remembering that nobody is perfect. Everyone deserves a bit of compassion, including ourselves. Martyr complex. Imagine a person who always puts others first, like all the time. They're there, willing to do everything for others, even if it means ignoring their own needs. This thing has a name, the martyr complex. These folks kind of feel good when they're sacrificing themselves for others. It's like they need the attention and sympathy of others to feel valued. And look, they might do good things for others, but the motivation behind it is a bit complicated. You know that friend who is always available to listen to your problems, help you with everything and more, but never seems to have time or willingness to take care of their own stuff? Well, that person might be placing themselves in this martyr position. The thing is, this behavior pattern can be really exhausting, both for the person sacrificing themselves and for those on the receiving end. The person who constantly feels overwhelmed by others' problems might end up resenting, feeling exhausted, and even a bit unjust. And on the other side, the one receiving all this attention might think it's cool at first, but later realizes that this friendship or relationship is a bit unbalanced. After all, it's hard to create a genuine connection when one party is always putting themselves second. And you know what's crazier? Sometimes people with this complex don't even realize they're acting this way. It might be automatic for them, like a way to seek validation or acceptance from others. But in the end, it's harmful to everyone involved. So, man, the important thing is to find a balance. It's great to help others, but you can't forget your own needs. Sometimes it's important to learn to say no, put yourself first, and seek more equal and healthy relationships. Being a martyr might seem noble, but deep down, everyone deserves to have their own needs met and respected.